This is the second demo that we've done on Crown of Roses. I'm not sure if I'm going to do another one after this. I'm hoping to be able to cover enough tonight to, between the two videos, the two demo sessions, new players should be able to get rolling on their own pretty well. In the first demo, we just gave basically a grand sweep of the game system. One of the things I found challenging with the rules was understanding where everything fit, and once I'd played through a turn, then everything just kind of clicks. But it takes a while to get to the meat and potatoes part of the game in the rule book. So what we tried to do last time was just show the overall scheme of things, how everything is going to kind of fit together without going into a large amount of detail on any one topic. What I've done here is I've gone ahead and set up first scenario. If you've got the playbook, it is the scenario entitled Seeds of Dissent. I've set it up for a 4-player game, and I realize that all you guys see are masked blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in here, and I'll unmask a few of these, and we can start talking about them. If you look down on the lower left-hand side of the map, in the Somerset region, I'm going to go ahead and unmask the Warwick block, the Lancaster blocks, and then down in the county of Dorset, I'm going to go ahead and unmask the Admiral and Exeter, who has that office. Okay, so one of the things that we need to talk about tonight is how blocks can be attached to one another. I'm not sure if I covered this last time or not, so I'm going to try to get that here. There's a couple personality blocks in the game. There's Henry VI, and then there's Queen Margaret. And right now I've got Queen Margaret actually set up here in the county of Pembroke. So you can see she's attached to the Pembroke block. These personality blocks, they have to be attached to someone. You'll see on the lower left corner of the block itself there's a 0 for the command rating. They're not able to command any blocks, including their own, which pretty much summarizes Henry VI. He couldn't really even command himself. So he's got to be attached to somebody. So what you do is you attach these to any one of the nobles, and they basically move together. I believe it does count for stacking purposes, so and we'll talk about stacking a little bit later. But basically these guys can't move on their own. I believe that Henry VI and Margaret can be left alone. In other words, they can be just dumped off somewhere, but that's not always a good idea. However, it is possible for you to do that. The offices. Offices we're going to talk about extensively in just a moment, but the offices convey also block. In addition to the effects that the office card is going to give the player, the block itself is going to be added to a given noble. So, for example, the noble Exeter has the Admiral block, and what this does is essentially gives him 2 more dice in a combat situation. So Exeter plus the Admiral is much more powerful than just Exeter on his own. But again, they have to be attached, and the Admiral has no command rating whatsoever. You can't dump this block off somewhere. He goes everywhere that Exeter goes. So, and he does also give some special benefits to him. So that's what the blocks, how they attach to one another. There's one other type of attachment that we'll show here a little bit later tonight, and that is the mercenaries, like the Scots, the Welsh, French, Burgundians. I think that's it for the mercs. So that's what's going on here with the with attachment. So I'm going to go ahead and I got to mask these blocks again, because otherwise I will forget who has what blocks. I apologize for you viewers, but as we talk about things, I'll try to unmask them so you can see what we're talking about. Okay, we really didn't talk about the Parliament cards, the actual offices and what they do, but it is kind of an important part of the game. So let's go ahead and just kind of run through these real quick. If you look to the right-hand side of your screen, you'll see that there are player displays arranged from top to bottom. You have the Lancaster display. Immediately below that, you have the House of Buckingham, and then you have the general card play area, followed by the Warwick player mat, and then finally you have the House of York's player mat. Starting up at the, actually we'll go through these in reverse order. Starting at the top, and I'll zoom in here for the video. On the right-hand side, the rightmost Parliament card for the House of Lancaster is the Lord Warden of the North Marches. And what this particular card is going to do, it's an office that Lancaster starts the game with. But in future turns, these offices are going to be doled out, voted upon, bid for. Deals will be struck and broke, I'm sure. They do a number of different things, so let's go through them all. First thing you see is at the top of the card, it gives you the title of the particular office, and immediately below that you find an IP value, a vote value, and a support value. The IPs are the influence points. That's how many influence points you're going to get during a particular phase of the game that is called the influence phase, as you see over here on the sequence of play track. So, the more influence points you have, the more points that you have available to you to influence nobles and bid for offices. Those are the key things you're going to do with influence points. And let me just take this little rabbit trail a moment and talk about the influence points. Each of the player mats has a section on the lower right-hand side of the card, right beneath the junior heir space. So for Lancaster, I'll just move some of these around so you can see what we're talking about. And this is what's called the influence point stock. These are the influence points tokens that are available to the player as of right now. And they can use these points throughout the turn, as I said, for trying to persuade nobles to come over to your side. You can use these points to also bid for offices during the king phase. So that's what the influence points do. There are several 0 point tokens, and when these are bid or when these are placed on nobles on the Parliament display, they're going to be flipped face down. And so when you do that, it's going to be masked. As you see here, I masked one of the blocks. It'll be hidden to the other players so they don't know the value of it. The 0 value influence points tokens, these things always become available during the influence phase to you. You only have 4 of them, and you can use them basically as a bluff. The others can be exchanged for as money. So yeah, I have a 10 token, a 2, and a 1. You can exchange them at like money at any point from your available influence points. And over on the left-hand side of the player mat, you'll see there's a huge stock of these. I shouldn't use that term stock, but there's a huge supply, let's call it that, of unclaimed influence. These are tokens that are available to you to exchange for, but you can't take tokens from the unclaimed influence and use it to try to influence a noble or bid for an office. You can only take from your stock. So basically consider that as the bank, and your stock is the money that you have in your account. I guess that's the best way I can I think to explain that. So that's what influence points are. You get more of them by controlling the different counties. I'm not sure that's the term used in the game. I keep calling them counties, but the territories on the map and the numeric value in those areas. That numeric value is how many influence points that area is going to give you. And we talked about that a little bit in the first video. Okay, so let's go through these offices now. The Lord Warden of the North Marches will give you 1 influence point. It also gives you an extra vote for the king. When you go to vote for the king, the more votes you have, the more power you have to try to get the king office, and of course that is a victory goal, to be elected as the king. It also provides 1 support. What does support do? Once again, lower left-hand corner of the map, there's a popular support track, and there's a pawn for each of the players along that track. And the further to the right you go, the more influence points you get in the influence phase, the more votes you get for the king, and the more cards you get in the card draw segment. So that's what this particular card is going to do. There's also a special ability on each of the Parliament cards. Each of these office cards has a special ability. It can be used once per turn. Now, there's also a ranking, and they are ranked from 1 to 8. The higher the number, the lower the rank. So the Lord Warden of the North Marches is basically the lowest ranked officer in the game. His special ability is this. If the Lord Warden responds to a Scots raid, you reduce that raid to 1 blue die instead of 2 blue dice. Also, if you decide to go into the exile, the Scotland exile box, whichever host block and any office that belongs to that host block that goes into that exile box does not lose any troop strength. Ordinarily, if you go into any one of the exile boxes, like the exile in Ireland or Scotland and France, if you go into the exile boxes, it's kind of a safe haven for an error. That way, if the other players are trying to gang up and kill off one of your heirs, you could put them in there, and it's basically a safe haven that nobody can go after you in. However, if you're in there, you can't attend Parliament and vote for the king. So how many votes that particular block has are basically lost in the vote for the king. And also, you're supposed to reduce the blocks down to retainer strength, which is like a cadre, or its lowest step value. Well, the Lord Warden does allow you to go into exile in Scotland, and if you were to do that, you would not go down to retainer strength. So that's the advantage to that particular card. When you use its special value, whatever special value function on an office card, whenever you use that, you flip the card over to show that its value or its effect has been used, and of course, the IP value of the votes, the support doesn't go away, but you can't use the special function anymore for the rest of the turn. Okay, so that's the Lord Warden of the North Marches. The next ranked one is going to be the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland in the Pale. And he, again, 1 influence point, 1 vote, 1 support point. And he attaches to an office block one of your nobles, and his special function is really simple. He allows you to go into exile in Ireland and not go down to retainer strength. So not a whole lot to write home about there. I will show you one other thing, though, about these offices. If I could find where I stuck the Lord Lieutenant. I think he's kind of in the middle here. Yeah, here we go. The office is held by York. So you can see there's his host block in the West Riding county. I really should start using the right term, but I can't think of it. Anyways, York has got the Lord Lieutenant office. Now, what the office does, the office also has a heraldic symbol, Shire. That's what it is. I knew it was something from Lord of the Rings. I couldn't think of what it was. All right, Shire. All right, so there's a heraldic symbol on the offices in addition to nobles. And what that allows you to do is it gives you one more place where you could put the host block during the wintering phase. So York, he's got the fairly general heraldic symbol of the white rose, and so he can be placed in the West Riding or any other shire that's got the white rose symbol. In addition to that, he could be placed in Ireland, which has the little Ireland symbol on it. So you can see Ireland has got that heraldic shield as well as the white rose. So there's not a whole lot of difference there for whoever has this office. Let me unmask this block over here so you can see. Lord Lovell, if he had the office of Lieutenant Ireland, then he could be placed in the Shire of Lancaster, or he could go into Ireland because he would have that heraldic symbol. So that's, again, some of the function of the Parliament is it does give you another place where you can winter your blocks. So that's rank number 7. Let's do one more here, and then I'll have to cut to a new video segment. And that's going to be the Lord Captain of Calais the Pale. Gives you 2 influence points, a vote, and a support point. Now this one's a little bit more powerful, and you'll obviously as you go up in the rankings, the more powerful the office becomes. This one here does allow you to respond to a French raid and reduce the effect of that raid to only 2 blue dice instead of, I want to say, 3. And the Lord Captain also does not lose any steps when he goes into exile in France. But I think the greatest strength of this particular office is actually in the block itself. It's a very powerful military component. And I got to see where I stuck him. Let's see, it's up here. Warwick has got it up here in the Shire of Durham. Hang on a second here. There we go. So Warwick's got the office of Captain of Calais, And you can see here he throws 2 red dice in combat, which is a 50-50 shot on each die. 4, 5, and 6 is a hit. Blue dice are the next most powerful. 5s and 6s are hits, and then the green dice, the least powerful, you have to roll 6s for. So whoever has this throws some pretty serious hardware in combat. So this Captain of Calais, he throws 2 red dice. When I attach him to Warwick, Warwick's going to throw 3 red dice in combat at full strength, and then 2 blue dice when you combine them with his office. So that's pretty cool. Pretty cool function, and again, it gives you a heraldic shield, so you could winter him in Calais. One other thing about wintering in Calais is that it does give you an extra card draw during the card draw phase, because you would actually control that particular shire. Okay, so that's the Captain of Calais. So, Captain of Calais was the next in rank of these offices, rank number 6. So we'll go down to rank number 5. I think that's going to be the Marshal. No, not the Marshal. Let's see here. The Lord Admiral, excuse me. This one is possessed by the Lancaster House. We saw the block a little bit earlier. Gives you 2 influence, a little more influence, 2 votes, and 1 support. If the Lord Admiral responds to a pirate raid, you reduce the raid to 1 green die instead of 2. Once per turn, the Lord Admiral may make a C move for any stack that he is the leader of by using only 2 ops points rather than 3. And that's actually a pretty useful function there. And again, his heraldic shield gives you numerous places to stick him. There's lots of places where this heraldic shield shows up on the south edge of the map. Next block is going to be the Lord Marshal. Lord Earl Marshal of England. Ranking is 4, gives you 2 influence, 2 votes, but 3 support. Very nice office here. This one here, if the leader during an engagement, he always forms his force and conducts replacements after the enemy has done so. Which is, basically, it gives you a little more intel in a battle than you would otherwise have. Once per turn, here's the once per turn thing. You may force 1 noble, either friendly or enemy, and any attached offices to that noble to reroll all of their combat round dice. Now you can't use that for Margaret or Henry VI if they're attached to a block, only offices. But that's actually really kind of neat. Very powerful function in combat, and again, it gives you more dice. The office itself is nothing to sneeze at. It's particular extra dice it throws. Let's see here. York's got it down here in the Shire of Surrey. It gives you 2 more blue dice, so it's a pretty powerful block, and it's got some great special functions to it. So that's ranking number 4. Ranking number 3 is not involved in the game at this moment. Next turn somebody will probably end up with it, but that's the Lord Treasurer, of the Exchequer. He gives you 3 influence, 2 votes, and 2 support. Currently that office is unheld by any nobles, so I'll put him back in the Parliament deck. Okay, next we have the Lord Chancellor of England. This gives you 3 influence, 3 votes, 2 support. If there's no king, then the Chancellor breaks all ties and gains the king's +5 vote bonus in place of the +3 vote bonus that this card would ordinarily have. The once per turn thing that this guy does is once per turn the Lord Chancellor may exchange 1 stack of influence points, those influence point tokens, in the Parliament with any other stack without looking at either stack. So basically, let's look at the Parliament display here. Let's say there was a big stack on Lovell, and there's a stack on Montague. Without looking at either stack, and the stack could be, several different, tokens, but you can't look at them, and you can take those stacks and swap places. So whoever thought they were influencing Lovell is now influencing Montague, and vice versa. That can really mess up somebody's plans. But again, it's a once per turn thing, and once you've used that function, you flip the Chancellor card over. And let's see, last one is the King. King of England. His block is currently not in play. whenever the king is King Henry VI, you don't get the very cool and very powerful block that attends that office. I'll drag it onto the map here so you can see what we're talking about. Sorry about that. Let's see. There we go. The king block gives you an extra red, an extra blue die, and it's 3 steps. So it's hard to kill off this particular block. It gives you +1 to the command value. It's a very, very capable block. So I'm going to throw him back into the inactive blocks. But whenever King Henry VI is in play and he's the king, he doesn't get that cool block. But he does get the office card. And the office card is very important. The holder of this office gives you 5 extra influence, 5 extra votes, 3 support. The king breaks all ties. He decides how to resolve any ties. That's really powerful. The king also gains +1 to the command as per the block. Of course, right now that's not the case because the Lancastrian faction doesn't actually have the block. The once per turn thing that the king office card gives you is you may basically take any once per turn function of any other office and use it for yourself. So, in other words, once per turn the king can use any other office's once per turn ability, and the other officer can use that ability. So if the king used the admiral's function, that doesn't cancel the admiral function for whoever has the admiral card. It just means that the king can do what the admiral would do. So very, very capable. So anything that the marshal or the chancellor or the admiral or the Lord of the Exchequer, any of those things that they can do, the king can do. And of course, once you've done that, you flip the card over to show that you've used that function for the turn. Okay, so that's the offices, and now let's go ahead and let's jump into play. I've already drawn cards for all the players in the game, and I realize you can't see their hands, so I'm going to try to describe as best I can for you how this works. If you weren't here the first time, I'll briefly describe how to work this in the Vassal module. During the operations phase, well, actually, let me back up. During the draw card phase, you draw cards. You're going to draw a base number of 5 cards, and you're going to modify that based on whether you have the king office, whether or not you control London or Calais, or if you're playing a 3-player or 2-player game, if you have the Warwick block, you'll draw extra cards for that. Also, make sure that when you look at the support, the popular support track, currently the York faction and Warwick faction each got an extra card based on the position of their pawn on the popular support track. Nobody at the present controls London or Calais, so that doesn't apply. The Warwick function does not apply in a 4-player game, so the only thing on this little box next to the sequence of play that actually does apply is the control of the Office of Kings. So that gave the Lancastrians 1 extra card for a total of 6 cards. The only faction that got 5 cards was Buckingham. Now, over on the impulse track, which is on the left side of the map, next to the turn track, you're going to put the final impulse token on the number that corresponds to the number of cards that the player that has the fewest cards in their hand possesses. So the Buckingham function has only 5 cards in their hand. And again, you don't count the house cards. You only count the cards that were drawn from the deck. And so right now they only have 5 of those in play or in their hand. And so that goes on the 5 space. Now in the next turn, a player might hold 1 or 2 cards in their hand. And how many cards they can hold is based on who their heirs are. So if you look at the different player displays, for example, York, Richard, the Duke of York, it says may hold up to 1 card between turns. So you could, if you're the York faction, you can hold on to 1 extra card at the end of your turn. And so the next turn, when you go to draw cards, you draw extra cards. You're going to draw 5 plus, whatever bonuses. So you might end up with more than you had the turn before because you held something. All right, so I've already drawn the cards for the players. During the operations segment, each player is going to play a card face down on the table, and then you reveal them all simultaneously. how to do that in Vassal. So this is how we've done this. In each player hand, there's a space on the very the lower right-hand corner that says place card or piece to declare in this box. And so you place any card or any piece that you want to declare in any simultaneous declaration. You put it in that box. And once everybody has confirmed that they've made their declaration, you press the button on the toolbar that says Reveal Declarations. So I'm going to go ahead and press that now. It says Declarations are revealed. So if you open up the Declarations window by pressing the Declarations button on the toolbar, you'll see that there are 4 cards that have been unmasked, and it shows what player played what cards. So it's kind of a slick way to do it, and again, it might not be terribly intuitive at first, but once you've done it a couple times, you'll see it works pretty smooth. So presently what happened here is Buckingham played a 1-op card, Jack Cade's Rebellion. Lancaster played Sarais Ap Thomas, which is an ally card, 3-op value. And Warwick played Vote of Confidence for 3 ops. And then there's a 1-op mandatory card called Embassy played by York. Now when you reveal these all simultaneously, you don't declare what you're going to do with it necessarily. You basically are going to look at the op value, and descending order of op value, the players are going to execute their cards. So right now there was a 1-op, 2 1-op cards and 2 3-op cards that were played. And so what you're going to do is you're going to start with resolve all the 3-op cards, then you do all the 2-op cards, and then the 1-op cards. In this case, no 2-op cards were played, just the 3s and the 1s. So the king player will decide who gets to go first here. And he gets to see, he sees all the cards that are out there, and so that might influence his decision. If it's your first game, I would counsel that you just do something. Don't agonize over decisions. There's so many different things that can happen in the game that if you just want to learn how to play, just do something and not drag the game out by overanalyzing. Well, in this case here, the Lancaster has the king office, so let's just say he decides we're going to go first and break that tie. So the ally card, Sarais Ap Thomas, it's a pretty neat card. You could play it for its op value, execute those ops on the map, but on the other hand, the event itself is pretty useful. Let's look at the event here. It says you can gain 1 ops when it's put in play. So by playing the event, you still get 1 op. Then once it's in play, you can discard it and choose one of the following bullet points to do at the moment that you discard it. So by discarding this in a battle situation, you could get +1 blue die in line combat. And then if the battle took place in Wales, you would get an additional +1 blue die. So that's a pretty cool event right there to discard for. You could also add 2 ally influence during the influence phase. So if you discard this during the influence phase, you get 2 more influence points. During an action step, if the Welsh bloc is uncontrolled, you can take control of it and attach it at full strength to any noble in Wales. Alright, so let's go ahead and play that for the event. So now in the Vassal module, none of the right-click functions work in the declarations window. It's complicated. I could explain it, but I would prefer not to. So anyways, what you're going to do here is just drag it off of that window onto the map. And spaces have been provided for ally cards, house allies in play on the map. Trying to get them centered. Sorry. Kind of funny about stuff like that. Anyways, alright, got them on the house allies spot. There are 3, I think I've provided 3 slots for house allies. That is not a rule in the game. It's just something for convenience. You could have a lot more than 3 allies in play. If you end up running out of room, just stack them on top of one another. That's not a hard, fast rule. So, but any allies that are put in play are played face up, and all the players are privy to that information. There are events in the deck that will cause you to lose your allies. All the allies can be lost. I think there's an event that allows you to steal allies from somebody. So just be aware of that. Okay, so he's done that. Now it says gain 1 ops when put in play. So it's been put in play, so Lancaster gets 1 op. And what to do with the ops. So here's the things you can do with the op value. I want to make sure I get this right, so let me get the rules here. During the when you play a card for its op value, there's a number of bullet points in section 15. And one of them is you can return an undeclared heir to in-play status. During the wintering phase, you take your heirs and you place them on the map in their home shires. But you don't have to do that. You can choose not to place one and leave it in the undeclared section of your player mat. You'll see that there's several blocks for York, Buckingham, Lancaster in the undeclared nobles and waiting heirs area of their playmat. The blocks that are in there presently, those are actually waiting heirs. They're heirs that can only be put in play when a house event card is played. And those house event cards are turn sensitive, so you can only play them on certain turns. But let's say that one of my other nobles, I didn't want to place it on the map during the wintering phase. I can kind of adopt a wait and see mentality and then use an op value to put it into play later on during the operations segment. The other thing you can do for an op value is you can move 1 stack of blocks using land movement for 1 op point per stack. So let's go ahead. I'm going to zoom out here so I can get the big picture of things. During the wintering segment, several battle situations have already come about. One of them is in Somerset. Somerset, along with the attached block King Henry VI, were placed in Somerset, and Warwick placed Montague. If basically a battle is going to be generated here during the combat segment here shortly. So what we're going to do here, and the combat is after all the card play is done. So what we're going to do here is we're going to reinforce Somerset by sending in Exeter and the Lord Admiral. So that's his attached office. So we're going to go ahead and move him in there. When you move on the map, when you activate a stack for movement, you're basically given 4 movement points to move by land movement. And there is a... should have gotten a chart in front of me. I don't have it in the Vassal module. Sorry about that. There is a chart that you definitely want to have for this. You get 4 movement points per stack. And I'm going to go ahead and unmask the block so you can see what I've got here. And you can see what Warwick has there. When you're moving these blocks, you get 4 movement points per stack. And the dashed borders cost only 1 movement point to cross. The solid black, a little bit thicker lines, those are rough terrain, and it costs you 2 movement points to move across. Now, there's something in the game called Safe Road. So, I'm going to just show you this kind of situation. Let's say that this was the situation, and I've got the Exeter and the Lord Admiral. I'll just put Exeter on top here. And I want to move him into Somerset. What I could actually do is it would only cost half a movement point to move into Dorset because we're crossing a normal border that's occupied by our guys. If we control that area, that's considered a safe road. It only costs me half a movement point. Because I got blocks there, I can't be intercepted by neighboring blocks. So Montague and Somerset and the Buckingham blocks that are in Devon and Wiltshire, they could not intercept because I got friendlies there. But once I move into Somerset, then a couple things are going to happen here. Montague, since if I didn't have any blocks in Somerset, Montague could choose to try to evade. He'd have to dice to do that. And I'll talk about that in just a moment. There's a die roll you have to make to evade, or you could try to intercept. So that's what's going on with movement. But since I actually moved into an area that was occupied by my own boys, there's not going to be an evasion there because of the wintering placement. See, King Henry actually started there. Because of the wintering placement, Montague and the blocks Somerset and Henry VI, they were basically pinned, meaning that they could not leave that area. So once movement has been affected and evasion has not taken place, or it's taken place and other blocks remain, there is the concept of pinning. One block will pin another enemy block. All right, and just to summarize, pinning, blocks that start their movement in a shire with enemy blocks are likewise pinned. So they're stuck together. All right, so interception. How do you intercept? When you want to intercept, you declare your intent. If there's multiple possible enemies wishing to intercept, the enemy player who conducts or conducted their impulse earlier in the turn gets to make the attempt. And again, the king is going to determine turn order here within this particular turn. So at the beginning, when you reveal the cards, he's going to decide the order in which everything gets resolved. And so that order is also going to apply to who gets to declare their intent to intercept. All right, so the intercepting player rolls a single die, compares the result with the leader's command rating, which is the number on the left of the block. So once again, let's say Exeter actually moved into Hampshire instead of into Somerset. Well, over here in Buckingham, or Wiltshire, excuse me, there is a Buckingham block. If I can get him to unmask. There you go. Ormond could actually try to intercept into Hampshire. But he'd have to roll against his command rating. And his command rating is a number in the lower left-hand side. So his command rating is a 1. He'd have to roll a 1 to intercept. That number is also, I believe, the evasion. So if you try to, if Exeter were to move into Wiltshire and Ormond wanted to evade, he'd have to dice against, again, his command rating. All right, so it's pretty straightforward. It's not terribly complex stuff, the evasion interception mechanic. All right, so that's how I would spend my 1-op. Now, battles don't take place yet. They only take place once everybody's card has been resolved. So, again, due to the wintering placement, there are numerous battle situations. There's one in Somerset. There's one up in Pembroke. There's one up north, too. What is it? One of the ridings. North Riding? Yeah. So there's numerous battle situations that have developed, but Lancaster had enough ops to be able to handle that one. Okay, so that was the Lancaster card play. Let's just say that the king declares York is going to go last in this. So now it's Warwick's turn to go. They have a 3-op card that they played. I'll just go ahead and stick it out here so you can see. Vote of confidence. Let's look at the event. The event says for each office held by nobles that you control, add 1 influence point from your unclaimed pool to your stock. So basically it gives you a little more influence points. Add 1 extra influence point if your heir is king, and or 1 extra influence point if you have the chancellor. Alright, so let's look at Warwick's playmat. Warwick doesn't have many offices. He only has 1 office, Lord Captain of Calais in the Pale. So I'm not sure it's worth 3 ops just to get 1 extra influence point token. Alright, so what to do with this guy? Again, let's look at section 15. You can return undeclared heirs for ops. You can do land movement for ops. You can also do sea movement. Sea movement allows you to move from one coastal area to another coastal area, a shire, if you will, that is a part of the same sea. Now, there's a couple different seas in this. You have the English Channel, which is divided from the Irish Sea by dashed lines or by Cornwall. And the English Channel is separated from the North Sea by the dashed line, just or by Essex and what is that? Suffolk. So that's sea movement. Not something we really want to do here, but a 3-op card will allow you to move 1 stack from one coastal area to another via sea movement. Of course, if you have the Lord Admiral, that's only 2 ops to do. Next thing you can do with op points is mustering. You get one op per step. Let's say, for example, that let's pretend that Montague is up here in Glamorgan. Say he's up in there, and let's say that he has taken some step losses. Say he's at retainer strength. For 1 op point, he can go up 1 step in strength. Okay. Now the most steps that you can add to a block in an area is determined by the the numeric value in the Shire. And all of a sudden my brain has escaped me here, and I don't remember what the Shire value, that's what it's called, Shire value. The number in the box, the Shire value, determines stacking, and it also gives you influence points, but it also restricts the amount of steps that can be added to a block. So if Montague is down in Dorset, the most he could get there is 1 step, because it's only got a Shire value of 1. Up in Glamorgan, it's got a value of 2, so he could add 2 steps to his block. And of course, that 2 is 2 steps entirely. So if you had numerous blocks in there, you could only add 2 steps total in that entire stack, in that entire area. You couldn't add 2 steps per block. It's 2 steps for that entire area. That's it. And you could spread it among different blocks. So 1 step on one block and 1 on the other. Well, if you spend more than, if you end up adding more than 1 step to a block in a given area, it depletes that area. And so there are some markers. Let me go ahead and find them here. In the markers tray, there's something called depleted markers. And so if I were to add 2 steps to Montague up here in Glamorgan, then that would deplete that area, which means that you could do no more mustering in that area. The depleted markers will go away at the end of the turn. But for the remainder of this year, there would be no more mustering in Glamorgan. So that's what mustering does for you. But of course, it's scenario start. All your guys are full strength, so that's not terribly useful. The other thing you can do is political influence. 1 op per noble to be influenced. So what that means is, if I play a 3-op card, it means I could influence 3 nobles. So let's look at the map here. And this is where I want to try to do something a little bit different with the vassal module, because it's hard to remember who controls what nobles in the game. And so if you're playing with a physical game, basically what I did is I got my all the cubes from Dominant Species, which conveniently match the colors. There's 4 colors that conveniently match the colors here in Crown of Roses, and I took the bunch of cubes from it, and I can use those cubes up on the roll of Parliament to match and mark what particular faction controls what particular block. Up on the roll of Parliament, you can actually steal blocks away from people, and when you steal their block, you're also stealing their vote. So there's some really cool things you can do up there. Now, a couple blocks aren't even up there. There's some that are inactive, and those are in the inactive blocks window. And so those are the ones I'm going to actually look at first here. And the first one that strikes my fancy is Arundel. And Arundel already, if you look at the roll of Parliament, Arundel is the very first top left-hand side in alphabetical order. He's the very first one that you find there. And on the number 3, the big number 3 in the lower right-hand corner, means I got to put at least 3 influence total on him in order to persuade him over to my side. But since I'm the Warwick faction, I also get an edge here, because you'll notice that he's got a blue rose in his box. So I'll zoom in here for the video, and you can see there's a blue rose. That gives you an extra point. So I could actually, since I'm the Warwick player, I could actually just stick a 2 influence token in there, and then plus the blue rose, that would be my 3. But it might be a good idea to make a sure thing certain. So I can spend 1 op to go ahead and influence Arundel. So let me go ahead and do that. And let me also say that operations points may be used, they may be spent on multiple uses of the same action or on different actions as desired. You don't have to spend all your ops on the same thing. You can kind of spread it around a little bit. Alright, now this would obviously be hidden. I'm going to do it openly so that you guys can see what we're doing. But ordinarily this block would actually, or this token would actually be flipped over, so it'd be masked like that to the other players. But I'm going to put it face up here in Arundel. But other players in the game, they would not be able to look at that until later on when the Parliament phase is executed. So I spent 1 op for that. next thing I probably want to do is have a battle situation up in the north. In the North Riding, I probably want to reinforce Salisbury is attacking De Ross. Of course, he doesn't know it's De Ross yet, but there you go. And there's Salisbury, and Salisbury's got the got Lord Falkenberg with him. So let's go ahead and bring the captain of Calais up with him. So all these guys are just going to gang up on poor little De Ross. And he's got one more op to spend. Now, he's got one more op to spend, and it would be really, really nice to be able to reinforce Montague, but the problem is Warwick just doesn't have any blocks in the neighborhood. There is another battle situation that's developing, though, and that's up in Pembroke. So what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to take Scrope out of Warwick Shire, and he's going to march him into Worcester. Let me go ahead and flip him more so you can see. He'll march from Warwick to Worcester, and then into Hereford. That's going to be 1, 2 movement points. He's not going to have enough movement points to get there, so he'll go ahead and move into... Now, when he moved into Hereford, the Buckingham block could choose to intercept, but it's really not in his interest to do so, so he's just going to say, go ahead and proceed. And he'll spend another movement point to move into here, and then he'll have to stop. So that's all 3 ops spent, and we can go ahead and discard that card. And we said York was going last, so it's Buckingham's turn, and they played an event card called Jack Cade's Rebellion. It would probably be in Buckingham's interest to use this for ops, but I want to show what this event does. So let's go ahead and do a planned uprising in any shire in England except Ireland, Calais, or the Isle of Man. Player controlling the responding noble gains +1 to popular support. So let's talk about rebellions and uprising. Alrighty, so Jack Cade's Rebellion. There's several different events that are clarified in much more detail than on the card itself. You're going to find these in section 14 of the rulebook. So if you read an event and you're like, well, what does that do? Section 14 is going to clarify all of that for you. And I'm not going to go through this in huge detail. What's going to happen here is when you play this particular planned uprising, you get to select an area, shire on the map, and then an impulse order, and the shire you select is restricted by the event. Now, Jack Cade's Rebellion is actually pretty cool. If somebody controls London, this is a nice one to stick on London. In impulse order, the player that has an in-play officer noble with a home estate in the shire in revolt or subject to a raid or whatever it is, declares whether he's going to respond to the event and with which officer. So, let's go ahead and see what we can do here about this. Let's say that we put the revolt, and I'm going to use a plague marker to mark it. Okay, let's just say the revolt is going to be up here in Durham. Okay, so I'm the Buckingham player, and I declare I'm going to have this revolt happen up in Durham. Okay, now in impulse order, so the order of the impulses this particular round has been Lancaster, followed by Warwick, then Buckingham, then York. So in that order, each player that has an in-play officer noble with a home estate in that shire in revolt gets to decide if he's going to respond. So let's look at the Shire of Durham. There's 2 heraldic symbols there. And the other block, the block with the red and the white cross, that's actually Westmoreland, and he's in the inactive nobles area. So he's not able to respond. He's not controlled by a player right now. The only other heraldic shield, well, that's Warwick. That means that Warwick has to use an officer to respond, or is able to. Excuse me. He is able. Basically he's the only one able to respond. If no officer volunteers, so let's say Warwick says, "Yeah, I'm the last one that can because I'm the last one that has an officer noble with a home estate in that area." But it says, I'm not going to do it. If no officer volunteers, then again, in impulse order, players can choose to send a non-officer noble with a home estate. So again, you go through the whole sequence, and if you have a non-officer, does Warwick want to send anybody up there? Let's say that he doesn't want to do that. Regardless, see the rule says, regardless, only the first player to elect to send a block may respond. And if the player controls, if nobody wants to respond to this thing, there is a thing that you can do called a writ. That's what I'm wanting to get to here. The player controlling the king may use something called a writ, which is a 3-op card. He can discard any 3-op card from his hand and call that a writ. And what he can do is he can use a writ to command any officer to respond if all the players have declined. So let's say Warwick and everybody's just declined. Nobody wants to do anything about this revolt up in Durham. Then the king, Lancaster, can command that it be done. Okay, and he can send a writ, and the player can send a writ to another player to see what happened, to respond to this particular uprising. Now, when you're given a writ, you don't have a choice. You have to do it. So, what's the deal with writs? All of a sudden, my mind is going blank here. I believe with the writ, the player has to send somebody, but I don't remember if he gets to pick who goes. Give me just a second here. I'm looking this up. Oh, where is it? So all of a sudden I can't find where writs are written about in the rules. So one of the other cool things that the King office can do, it's expensive, but it can be very helpful. Ah, here it is. It's on page 17. Basically, similar to a surprise card, it can be played at any time. 3-op value card can be discarded to select a valid in-play noble, friendly or enemy, as a substitute for a friendly noble or office that could be responding to a noble planned uprising or raid. Basically, you can use this as a substitute. Only the player that controls the king can do this. And so he can, any in-play block can be used, except an in-play block cannot be subject to a writ more than once. It can't be an in-play heir. It can't be a block in a contested shire. So the king couldn't actually, this would be really fun for him to do, but he's got a battle situation up in Pembroke, but he can't use a writ to send Herbert up there. So too bad for that. But he can issue a writ and declare that Warwick has to send somebody up there if he wanted to screw Warwick or maybe get somebody out of the way. He knows who the Lord Marshal is, and he remembered that the Lord Marshal, during the wintering phase, it'll be obvious when certain office blocks are placed and the attached nobles are placed in the wintering phase. It'll be obvious what that who exactly that noble is. And so what he could do is say, York, I would like for you to take this guy right here, Norfolk, and get your tail from Surrey all the way up and deal with that thing up here in Durham, this uprising. I want you to deal with that. Now to do that, Lancaster has to discard a 3-op card from his hand. So he's got to take and discard this 3-op card to force that to happen. So kind of a cool little thing that the king can do. And the reason why he might want to do that is then it forces York to vacate a very convenient spot right next to London. It's going to make it a little bit harder for somebody to take control of London. It looked like York had a lock on London and being able to control that area. But now this writ has really screwed things up for him. So the uprising is going to take place up there now. Let's go ahead and resolve it. So for planned uprisings, what you're going to do is you're going to roll a number of green dice equal to the Shire value, and you're going to roll an additional die if the Shire in revolt is loyal to a house other than the responding noble's controller. Look at the box that the Shire value is in. It's black, so it's not loyal to any of the players, so that extra die isn't going to happen there. So essentially what's going to happen here is we're going to roll 3 dice because the Shire value is a 3 where this uprising is, and it's going to be 3 green dice. First one's a hit. So first one's a hit. We'll go ahead and unmask these so you can see how we're going to resolve this. And I got to choose to take a step loss off one of these, and I can choose to take it off of the martial block here. So martial block goes down 1 because of that. That was unfortunate for York. But the revolt has been put down, so we can go ahead and delete that marker out of there. Okay. And again, there's a couple bugs in the vassal module. I'll get those fixed. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. All right, so that was the event. That's what the event did. Essentially, what it does is it could inflict step losses. It could, cause somebody to, move to an area where they really don't want to move. But it also does something positive for the responding noble. If the player controlling the responding noble, per the event card, gets +1 to popular support. So because York did respond, although by a writ, he was commanded by the king to do so, his pawn does go up to the 5 spot. So he gets 1. It's not a total bust for him. Not sure what that did for Buckingham, but I just wanted to show you what that mechanic does. Okay, last one to play this turn, and this is where we're going to start to wrap things up tonight, is the mandatory card. And I'm actually not quite sure how this is going to be resolved. Mandatory cards are cards that must be played. You can't hold them in your hand. If the turn ends, if the year ends, there's a particular mandatory card that can cause the impulse rounds to be terminated abruptly, leaving players with cards in their hands and proceeding directly to, I believe, the king phase or something like that, or the parliament phase. If that should happen, you have a mandatory card in your hand, there are some penalties for that. But mandatory cards, you really do have to play them. You are not totally out of luck with them because they generally give you the op value in addition to the event, but you have to carry out the event first. Okay, so here's the event. It's an embassy. You're going to roll 1d6. So I'll just go ahead and chuck a red one here, and it's a 6. So a 6 means Durham. The king must move to the designated shire or use a writ to have another noble attend. Okay, now here's the situation that I'm not quite sure about. And I'm hoping the section 14 is going to clarify this, because the king is actually in a battle situation in Somerset. So I'm not sure that he can actually leave. The block of the current king and its attached office block, if you should have one, must immediately be moved to the designated shire, or use a writ to send a representative instead. The king or representative may not leave this shire for the duration of the impulse, and in keeping the king's peace, no enemy blocks may enter that location for this impulse. So basically, Durham is going to be a safe haven for the king for this phase. You can't go in there and pick him off. This includes enemy blocks that retreat or evade from combat. Combat cannot take place in that shire at all. Now, where's Durham? Well, there's a convenient thing on the back of the rule book. If you cross-index it, you find Durham is cross-indexed by 3 and 23. Where is that? Durham, where are you? Sorry, it's cross-indexed by 6 and 15. I was looking at the wrong line. It's way up north. Duh. I knew I'd just read about it earlier. Yeah. It's where York went with Well, that's funny. All right, if one or more enemy blocks are already in that shire, they must immediately retreat to an adjacent shire if able. And if unable to retreat, the enemy blocks are placed in their owner's undeclared pool. You place the king's office blocks or the sent representative flat on the map in that shire. As a reminder, nobody can enter there for the rest of the impulse. Now, here's the question. I'm not sure what to do here because the king's actually in a battle, and I don't know if the host has to go with him or just the king. Is Steven still with us? Steven, are you able to answer that? I don't think his mic's working. Sorry, Steven, we're not hearing anything out of your mic.
How's this?
That's better.
Okay, the king can go by himself. Well, it's not advisable, but he can. But the first thing that the Lancaster player should do is see if he has another 3 he can discard to rid someone else.
Yeah, that's something that's probably not going to happen here because he's got a really crummy hand. It's full of 1s and 2s at this point, so he'd have to actually lose a house card, and it's a Henry Tudor.
Yeah, he doesn't want to lose Henry Tudor.
Yeah, so in this case, is he allowed then to take his host and leave a battle situation?
No, he can go by himself. The host is still pinned.
Okay. So he's got to go up here, and then the York boys in Durham, they've got to retreat, and the only place they can retreat to be Westmoreland here. The other places are occupied by enemies. Alright, so that's the embassy. Of course, nobody can run in there and attack him. Of course, it was the last card of the impulse, which, being the king, he probably should have had that. When he determined the turn order, he probably should have determined it differently so that this event would have come up earlier. Anyways, perhaps giving him a chance to send somebody in there for some help. Yes?
I'm going to interject for a second. I forgot you moved Exeter as well, so he could take Somerset because Somerset's no longer pinned with Exeter and the Admiral there.
Okay, roger that. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, that's better. Okay, and then as the rest of the embassy card says, after you've done this, then you do get to spend 1 op. So the York player does get 1 op to spend, and I think that Essex will march from Essex into London. And as for the garrison of London, it's not a block, it's a token on the board, and it basically helps whoever controls London to defend London. London's not aligned with any player, but it has 4 points worth of influence or shire value, which is very useful for influence, and it also conveys an extra card provided that you're holding on to that during the card phase. Okay, last thing we want to do tonight is let's handle some battles. Now, battles are actually pretty simple. They only get complicated when you get more than 2 players in the same shire. That's when the rules get a little complex, and so there's some boxes down on the bottom of the map to mark who moved in first, who moved in second, third, and fourth. And in that case, you're going to have numerous battles that are going to take place in a sequence. No 2 players are ever allied together. They can't defend together or attack together. This is a 4-player free-for-all. We don't have any of those complex situations here to describe to you, but we do have a couple battles. So let's go to do the one up in Somerset first. The sequence of battle is actually on the back of the player aid card, and it's one of those things that I was looking for in the rules and couldn't find. I was getting kind of frustrated because I'm like, well, what is the exact sequence of this? And then I saw it's already laid out really nice on the play aid. So the back side of the play aid, there's this combat sequence, upper left-hand corner, and you're going to resolve the Shire battle, the different battles. If you got numerous battle situations, you're going to resolve them in impulse order as first attacker. We just went ahead and picked this one here. We select a leader block. One block's going to be the leader, and you're going to use his command value to bring other blocks into the battle. So Exeter, really this is simple here because there's only one leader, one block really in each area. The Admiral is attached to Exeter. So in reality, think of those two blocks as though they were one block. So I'm trying to think of where we have more than one. Up in the north riding, that's where determining a leader is going to be a little bit more important. So we'll get to that one a little bit later. All right, select the main force. If you've got forces that came in from different shires, one's going to be a main force, and you're going to have others that are going to have to come in on a future round. In this case, that's not the situation. All you really just have two guys in here, and they're just going to duke it out. Blocks that are not in that starting force, they're basically considered reserves. And there's blocks that are reserves, there's blocks that are reinforcements, etc. Okay, so you get to the first thing you're going to do here before we roll dice is we get to decide on battle charges. Now, only heirs can do this, and we don't have any heirs in these battles right now. Montague could be an heir, but he's not at the present. If I remember right, I think that's how it works. Let me see. Yeah, Warwick's an heir, Buckingham's an heir, Salisbury's an heir. I'm just double checking all these, yeah. So we don't have any heirs in this battle. What a charge would do is allows the attacker to fire first and apply the effects of his attack before the regular line combat would take place. The charging blocks get +1 to their die roll. So they got a better chance of scoring hits. And then if they eliminate any blocks during the charge, then the elimination roll, you have to determine what happens to the noble once he loses all his steps. Using the elimination chart, there's a -2 modifier when you roll on the elimination chart. If you have two heirs that are charging one another, you roll their attack dice, and it's going to be resolved simultaneously. But basically, the battle charge allows you to get a fire in before line combat takes place. Once you've charged, then the target blocks return fire on the charging block. So let's just pretend that Exeter charged Montague. Exeter would roll his stuff out, and then the target block are going to return fire on him. And I believe that is done simultaneously. Okay, but here's the thing: if Montague is not killed by the charging Exeter, Montague will get to fire again in line combat. But Exeter, because he charged, does not get to fire in line combat. So I found it kind of hard to understand when I was reading in the rule book, but once I saw it on the table, it made sense. The long and the short of it is this, that if you charge, you don't get to do line combat, but you get this first strike ability, and if you can kill the block, the target block, then you know that the target block's not going to get to fire twice. But if you fail to kill that target block, not only all you're going to have to face is return fire in line combat, but that block is going to be able to fire again in the regular line combat phase. So, I'm sorry, if you charge and you don't kill the block, he'll fire back in the charge combat and then fire again in line combat. Okay, once charges are all done, then you do line combat and you do it block by block, and the damage is inflicted simultaneously. So in this case, Exeter, since he's an attacker, we'll roll for him first. He gets 3 blue and 2 green dice. So 1, 2, 3. He scores 1 hit. And nothing on the greens. Okay, then Montague throws 1 blue and 2 green and scores a hit. So each scores a hit. And in the combat here, you have to apply hits to the strongest block. Right now, Exeter has 3 steps, so he's the strongest block. And so he's going to take a hit. Montague, it's only 1 block, so he's going to take a hit. And then we go to the next round. During round 2, a leader can reinforce up to his command rating. If you have reinforcement blocks, you can enter them. And you can determine a new main force, and then you go ahead and decide on battle charges and do all that stuff. Okay, retreats are allowed after the second combat round. All right, so you have to face 2 rounds of combat before you can actually choose to retreat. So we're going to go ahead and fire again with Exeter and the Admiral. Oh, and since this was a wintering battle, I should have mentioned this earlier. It's important to determine who's the attacker and who's the defender. In a wintering battle, the king decides who the attacker and who the defender were. Otherwise, it's whoever moved into the territory, into the Shire second, that's determined as the attacker. Okay, so in this case, it's a wintering battle. Let's just say the king determined he's the attacker here. Alright, so he throws 2 blue dice and misses, and he's got 2 greens, and both misses. Montague gets a blue and a green, scores a hit. And since both Exeter and the Admiral blocks are at 2-step strength, he'll take the loss on the Admiral block. Now the Admiral block is now at retainer strength, but he still fires 2 dice. Okay, so the reason why he didn't want to take that hit on Exeter is that would actually put Exeter near death. Rather lose the Admiral block than to lose Exeter. And by the way, if you lose the Admiral block in combat, you don't lose the office. You just lose the block for the rest of the turn. Alright, so that's the second round. At this point, Montague might say, you know what, I've had enough of this. Let's leave the battle. Fortunately, I don't think he's allowed to retreat here because Exeter actually entered from Dorset. So he's really got nowhere to go, so he's just going to stick this out. Exeter figures he'll go 1 more round. He throws a blue and 3 green, scores 1 hit. And Montague throws a hit. Oh! Montague, 2 hits. Alright, so that's going to actually put Exeter at retainer strength, and the other step loss will kill the Admiral block and send him to the inactive window. So I'll just go ahead and do it like that. Okay, now Exeter figures, okay, I've had enough of this, and he's going to retreat to Dorset. And Montague will retain Somerset. Okay, so that was 1 battle. Let's do 1 more here and try to wrap this up. North Riding. We'll go ahead and spread the blocks out here so we can see them a little better. Warwick is the captain of Calais. And, let's see, Buckingham. Okay, De Ross is a long shot to win this thing. We do have 1 error in combat here, and it's Warwick. Now, let me ask this question. Stephen, if Warwick chooses to charge, because he's the captain of Calais, do both of his blocks fire in charge combat? I've been playing that they do. Okay, I'm not sure if you heard me. I think that's how it works. I think Warwick, because he is the captain of Calais, I believe that when he charges, that his office blocks fires with him. So we're going to go ahead and charge De Ross with 3 reds and 2 blues, and a +1 die roll modifier. So the charge is probably going to wipe this guy out. But before we do that, we actually should, in fact, pick the leader block. Now, in this case, we have several different blocks, and only one of them can be the leader. So how do we determine that? Well, what we do is look at Rule Section 20.4.1. Rule 24.1. Defender's going to form his force first. This is easy here. De Ross is the defender, and he has just his own block. Then the defender chooses a leader for the engagement. This must be the most senior heir in the force. Okay, so it's got to be senior heir. Even though Falkenberg's got a better command rating, Warwick is the senior heir there. Currently, Salisbury, hold on a second. Salisbury's the senior heir. Warwick's the junior heir. My bad. Sorry, Salisbury is going to be the he's going to have to be the leader here. Well, this makes the thing a little bit more interesting. All right, so he's going to have to be the leader. Once you've chosen the leader for the first round, excuse me, the attacker chooses leader, though for the first round the leader must be the noble that led the attacking player's starting force, which also would be Salisbury because he wintered there. So the Johnny-come-lately here was Warwick. He was the one that reinforced the battle. All right, so he chooses his leader, though for the first combat round the leader must be the noble that led the attack. The attacker then chooses blocks remaining from the starting force, if any, to fight with the leader as the attacking force up to the leader's command rating. All right, so Salisbury can actually add 2 more blocks to him. So he's going to add Warwick and the Captain of Calais blocks. Okay, so his command rating is 2, so he's going to add Warwick, Captain of Calais. Falkenberg's going to have to sit this one out. All right, so that is starting force here. Making sure I've done this right. Okay. Okay. So that's the situation now. It's not quite, Salisbury could charge, but I think it's better just to charge with Warwick. So we'll go ahead and put a charge marker on him. Falkenberg's not going to get to fire this round. Of course, if these guys take like hideous damage or something, second round you could bring Falkenberg in and have somebody else sit out the second round. But we'll go ahead and do it this way. So Warwick's going to fire. He's going to fire 3 red, 2 green, or 2 blue with a +1 die roll modifier, which is probably going to kill Ross outright. So 1, 2, 3. It's actually 2 hits right there, and then 2 blues. Well, yeah, that'll do it. All right, that's more than enough. That kills him, but DeRoss does get to fire back. No die roll modifier for him. He's going to throw a miss and a hit. He does throw a hit, so Warwick will take a step loss due to the charge, but DeRoss is done. Now, when he's killed, we have to roll an elimination chart. And he's going to get a -2 modifier because he was eliminated by battle charge. So we'll just throw 1 die. It's a 4 -2, and the result is killed. The noble, if he was an heir, he goes out of play. DeRoss is not an heir, he's just a noble, and he's going to go to unavailable. So we're going to go ahead and take him and put him up here on the Parliament display to show that you can't put any influence on him, and he's done. He's dead. At the end of the turn, at the end of the year, I should say, all of the guys in the Parliament that are unavailable, they'll go inactive, and on the following turn, the following year, you'll be able to go ahead and influence those guys. So that's the most extreme result of battle, is to have that noble killed. And I see that the charge button does not have a delete function. Oh, good grief. Got a bunch of bugs in the module. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, so that is the end of that battle, and that's how the combat system works. Once again, it's real straightforward. It's not terribly complicated. Where it does get complicated is when you have, as I said, 3 or 4 players. The most extreme cases, you have blocks from each faction in that territory or that shire at the end of the battle. Last thing I want to cover here is stacking. Once you've gone through all the impulses here, you do need to check stacking. So let's explain that real quick here. I want to get my sequence of play right here. All right, so you've done the combat stacking. Once all the cards for this round have been resolved, we do a stacking check, and we check each territory, each shire, to make sure that they meet the stacking requirement. The stacking requirement is simple. It's the shire value +1. So up in the North Riding, the shire value there is 2, so we can stack 3 blocks there. If we have 4 or more, then there must be attrition taken. So right now we have 4 blocks: Captain of Calais, Falkenberg, Warwick, and Salisbury. So we have a stacking problem. What to do? Well, it turns out, as a part of the combat sequence, after battle's done, you can actually do a post-battle movement. That means you can take some of the blocks out of that area and move them into an adjacent area. You don't have to do this, but you may do this. So Warwick is going to go ahead and put Falkenberg into the East Riding, and that will resolve the stacking problem. So that would actually be a part of the combat sequence. Okay, so let's say that, what if it was not possible? What if there's enemy blocks in East Riding and he couldn't do a post-battle movement there? What then? Well, if you don't meet the stacking requirements, you have to roll on an attrition chart for every single block. So there's an attrition chart. Roll of a 1 or a 2 means you lose a step. A 3 or more, there's no effect. There are modifiers to those die rolls. There's a +1 modifier if you're in error, or the block is a leader block like Henry or Margaret. There's a -1 modifier for blocks that are retreating or evading across a fen's border. You see that there's some borders that have like a little skull on it down by the wash and the fens. If you have to retreat or evade across those things, there's a modifier for the attrition roll. Also, if you march across those, I believe you have to roll for attrition as well, but without the modifier. So that's how attrition works in the game. That's stacking, that's combat, and I think we've covered the nuts and bolts of the game, really. So we'll go ahead and stop the demo here at this point. If anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, I think the game's pretty well laid out. The rule book is one of those rule books that's, for me, it was kind of hard as I was reading it to put everything together. But I find that if I have a question, I can find it in the rule book or the FAQ. There's a pretty good. The FAQ has been maintained real nice. So if I'm finding something and it's not in the rule book, generally common sense and the FAQ is going to resolve it. I was talking to Volko after the last demo, and he was telling me there is a couple variants up on Board Game Geek, but there's one that was really intriguing to me. I haven't actually read the article, but the way Volko was describing it was that there's some modifications that someone made to the victory conditions, where he takes all of the victory conditions in the rules as written and kind of merges them together. And so you basically, if you take how many turns that you were the king versus how many enemy counties that you control versus all the other little conditions for victory in the game. You take all those things and it gives you a more composite victory summary. And I thought it was a really cool sounding variant because I think in the rules as written, killing a noble is going to be hard. And killing all the players' nobles in a 4-player game, I think it's going to be really hard. Which means that my most likely chance of winning is controlling enemy shires. And so I'm probably going to go after that more than trying to get elected king 5 times or kill off all the nobles. Unless that opportunity presents itself. The variant that Volko was telling me about would modify that. It would make that approach of just going after the enemy shires a little bit less, actually a lot less attractive. So, and maybe it might work a little bit smoother for players. So anyways, if you feel inclined, go ahead and check those out. Otherwise, I think this is a really cool game. I'm just dying to get a chance to play it. I'm hoping to maybe at the Consim World Expo here at the end of this month get a chance to sit down and actually play this one face to face with people.